memberships here. Nope. And there's a recording at AGU. And among the things that I oversee and my team oversees is support of sections and section leaders. So we wanted to make sure we talk to you early in the year. So thanks for taking the time to do this. I would ask if we could bring down the slides for a second so we can all kind of see each other and meet each other. And I'm just looking for a few notes to make sure I've got the right thing. So this is our tip, we do this annually. Those of you who have been a section leader, we did this with you last year. But this is our typical annual onboarding for section leaders, focusing in particular on operational support and resources to help you kind of doing your day-to-day operational work with AGU, leading a section, getting resources, getting help, asking us for help. This is different kind of than your role as a council member. And I recognize you all have another meeting coming up next week that we'll get into that. And there's so many meetings and so many ways we kind of reach out to you. So I want to kind of clarify that from the outset. But as we walk through this, we recognize these are unusual times, right? Things are moving rapidly. There's a lot of issues going on in the world that I think the council meeting next week, if Cheryl hasn't sent you the agenda yet, you will get soon, is kind of made space for folks to talk about those areas and to, for AGU to continue to work to determine how we best support the community at this time and in the longer term. We hear you, we're mobilizing, and again, the council meeting's making space for that. So I don't want you to think that we're kind of in a tunnel here talking to you about operational pieces, but we did want to kind of continue on with this and see how we could be helpful. And then what I'd like to do before we get into kind of the agenda is ask each of the section folks to introduce yourself. I think there may be something that, Josh put something in the chat there in case you want to kind of follow that or however you want to introduce yourselves. There's also a few staff here. I would ask staff to just we'll introduce ourselves as we kind of do our quick presentations and have time for Q&A at the end. So I am just going to kind of call out who I see on my screen to make it easier. So first member I see on my screen is Ian.
Everyone, I'm Ian Grooms. I'm in the nonlinear geophysics section. I'm president-elect, so new here. And I've been an AGU member, I think, for 10 to 15 years, definitely 10, maybe 15 years. I can't remember precisely.
Very nice. Thank you. Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Bernhardt from Duke University, and I am a member of the Biogeosciences section and the current president.
Thank you. How long have you been a member? Did you say that?
I didn't say, and I don't know that it's been continuous, but let's say 20 years with some interruptions that I didn't realize were interrupted.
Okay, that sounds typical of what I've heard from others. So Rodrigo, you're next.
Hello, I'm Rodrigo Vargas. I'm the president-elect of the Biogeosciences section. I am at the University of Delaware currently, and in a few months I will move to Arizona State University. And I have been a member, I think, since 2005, but I think what's important is I'm a lifetime member now.
Very nice, thank you. Tyrone.
Tyrone Rooney of Michigan State University. I am president-elect of Volcanology, Geochemistry, and Petrology Division. As for how long a member, more than 20 years continuous.
Very good, thank you. Colleen.
Hi, everyone. Colleen Hansel. I'm at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and I am the past president of Biogeosciences. And like Emily, I have 20 plus years, but not continuous.
Great, thank you for that. Costanza.
Hello, everybody. I'm past president of VGP, Volcanology, Geochemistry, and Petrology section, and I'm at the University of Geneva. Members for about nearly 20 years. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And I think the last person here, Raffaele.
Hello, I'm Raffaele Marino. I'm the past president of Nonlinear Geophysics. I'm member since 2008, and I work at the National Center for Scientific Research in France, in Lyon.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for being here today. We have a lot of things to go through, but just kind of interrupt us as you need. I'll go through the agenda briefly. We'll bring back up the slides. You saw that or heard that we're recording this. We're going to share the recording with you after the fact. So you'll get all these materials that you're seeing. Amber Levy oversees affiliation, engagement, and membership, kind of this area of work, and she's going to be on some of the calls. So welcome. We've just kind of gone through. I'm going to talk a little bit about our section journey. We actually met with some sections last year to try and map the journey of a section leader and got some inputs. I wanted to share that with you and kind of vet some things that we learned. We'll go through section operations, finance and development. And Josh will briefly talk about tools and resources that are available to you. But we are not going to spend a whole lot of time on that because we want to make sure you have time to ask us questions. And a lot of the tools and resources are things that you can find online. We'll let you know how to find them. And we'll be sending you some little tutorials maybe in the next couple of weeks that cover some of that. So why don't we move on? Okay, so next slide. And I'll mention that on the call, we also have Melissa Goodwin from the PMO who helped with some of this work. So last year, so Melissa, jump in whenever I've missed something or if you like. So last year, we really wanted to look, we've been doing a lot of work in terms of, some of you probably know, member research and have developed a membership roadmap to take us through 2025. A subset of that was taking some time last year. Melissa and I and Josh talked to 4 sections. I've forgotten which one, that I can go back and look, and kind of gotten some feedback from section leaders in terms of what their day-to-day, so to speak, with AGU as a section leader, mostly on the operational side, what that looks like. And I won't show all of that because we actually showed some of that to council last year. For those of you who are new and didn't have that information, when we did a survey and a few other things, I can provide that info later. But where we are now is kind of based on that. We came up with some from-to statements. And I'd love to get your feedback if this makes sense. So some of what we heard from section leaders. So going from operating in administrative capacities to supporting you to make sure that there's space for sections to get back to the science. From sections from functioning as siloed entities to engaging in cross-section collaboration. A lot of the feedback we have heard from sections, not just in those interviews, but just generally throughout the year, is that there needs to be a way for section leaders and sections in particular to cross-functionally work together, engage, learn from each other, promising practices, that type of thing. Going from experiencing unclear roles and responsibilities to receiving proper onboarding. So that's this as a start, right? Going from reinventing the wheel to creating mechanisms, again, to my other point, sharing practices within and across sections. And we can talk a little bit about how we'll do that. One of those things is we have monthly section leader calls where we hope to make space for you all to do that sort of thing. Those start in March. We'll hear more about that. And from separately delivering member value to partnering between AGU and sections to drive and reinforce member value together. What we found in talking to the sections is that we're kind of doing the same thing, but at different levels, and one on the section level, one at kind of the union level, of trying to find a way to bring member value to the larger membership and partnering with sections to see how you're doing that and how we can support that. Why don't we go to the next slide? So based on that, we kind of came up with some primary opportunities. This is really raised up from a whole lot of other information that we had last year, but primary opportunities with section leaders and section executive committees, and then trickling from that, is to provide better training resources and guidance before and during your role. So this is kind of what we're trying to do here. Coming up with SOPs, standard operating procedures and standards, because some of what we heard from sections was depending on what section you're in, there were kind of standardized ways to do things, but in other sections, there wasn't a lot of perhaps collaboration on how to standardize the work, particularly, or sharing the information, especially in the transition from one section leadership to the next year section leadership. Section to section engagement, as I mentioned, the collaborating piece. And then, as I mentioned, collaborating with sections to drive member value together. So I wanted to just kind of set the stage that these were some of the things that we found last year. And I know we only have an hour-long call, but this is kind of the mindset we're coming from. I do want to see if Melissa, since you are on the call, you want to add anything based on what we did last year. No?
You
Okay.
covered it.
Great. So I'm going to stop there. And before we get into like the really in the weeds things like financials and development and other things like that, I mean, how does any of this resonate for you all? Are there major pieces of how we should engage and support section leaders that you're not seeing here? Or maybe you don't know yet.
I have a query.
Sure.
A calendar, an integrated calendar indicating key tasks, because that usually is the problem. If we can see key tasks coming, we can more effectively deal with our time. In many cases, it's a random email that arrives that oftentimes requires immediate action or action that's quite rapid. Is there a development of an integrated calendar like that?
We have a very high level one in the slides coming up, but I think that it probably, I'm pretty sure it doesn't cover probably the multitude of things that you get from AGU that but I am glad to kind of take some thoughts and notes once you look at that calendar and see what you think. Any other initial thoughts? Anything sound like it's off? Go ahead, Emily.
I underline the calendar would be fabulous, and just the sheer volume of different emails from AGU makes it really easy to miss what's critically important to us. And I don't know how we solve that problem, but I find that just really impossible to navigate.
Yeah, I understand. And let's see how we can help with that. Anyone else? I'm just looking for hands here or. Well, why don't we go ahead through some of the detail pieces and ask questions. Keep in mind kind of those overarching from to statements as we go through, because we want to be as supportive as possible, but also connect you all to learn from each other. So why don't we keep moving? All right, so section financials. I think of the two folks here, Kevin, I think you're joining us today. So you want to introduce yourself and talk to folks here?
Sure. Thank you, Rosa. Hello, everyone. I am Kevin Dixon. I am the Director of Financial Planning and Analysis on the finance team. I work closely with our VP of Finance, who is Nikki Cooper. I essentially oversee financial reporting, budgeting, and forecasting processes here at AGU. So I'm happy to present the finances portion of the presentation for you all. Next slide. Great. So a couple of things to know about your section finances. There are 3 key ways in which AGU supports your section efforts. The first is through the incentive program that we have, where AGU will contribute between $1,000 to $5,000 to your section based on the participation levels from your primary affiliate members. The second way which AGU contributes to your section is through the $50 subsidy per ticket sale to offset your food and beverage costs for your event at the annual meeting, which is capped at $50 per section. And then the final way in which AGU supports your section is by contributing to your student activities. Here, AGU will contribute a max of $5,000 based on your spend on your student activities at fall meeting. So for example, if you spend $1,000, AGU will contribute $1,000 to your section. And if you contribute or spend $6,000, AGU will contribute $5,000 to your section. Also, under things to know about your finances are your financial reports. So AGU financial report that we distribute is in the traditional statement of activities format for nonprofit organizations, which highlights your profit and loss. Your financial report reflects your total revenue, which is your incoming cash, your total expenses, which is your outgoing cash, and your change in net assets, which is the money that you have in your bank account. Next slide, please. The first round of financial reports, which are your 2024 unaudited financial statements, will be distributed in mid-March. Your unaudited financial statements will cover preliminary financial results for year ending 2024. These are preliminary results, as I mentioned, and should be used for information purposes only at this time, which as far as unaudited financial statements and preliminary results, they are subject to change based on our final audit review. If there are any material changes to your unaudited financial statements, we will communicate those changes to you all. Next slide, please. So one question that we hear from sections is, how much money do I have in the bank for my section? On your financial report, your net asset ending balance serves as the key indicator of funds available for your section. There are two types of cash flows that affects your net assets ending balance. As I mentioned, the first one is incoming cash, which is your revenue. Your incoming cash is the money that you receive from things like contributions, donations, sponsorships, which entails will increase the money that you have in your bank account. And then you have outgoing cash. Your outgoing cash is the money that you spend related to things like travel grants, awards, student early career activities, and that will pose a decrease to the money that you have in your bank. And then we also have your incentives, which are the three ways in which AGU supports your section efforts, which I covered in the first slide. Next slide, please. This slide provides an example of your financial report in the traditional statement of activities format for nonprofit organizations. Your financial report comprises of three main sections. Again, revenue, your incoming cash, your expenses, which are your outgoing cash, and then you have your net ending balance, which is money that you have in the bank that serves as funds available to your section. Next slide, please. Here we have the financial reporting schedule for the year. We distribute, well, for 2025, we will be distributing 4 reports this year. I mentioned the first round of reports will be your unaudited 2024 year-end financial statements, which will be distributed by the middle of March. We expect to have your final audited 2024 financial statements to you between April and May. Your 2025 year-to-date June financial reports will be available to you all in July of this year. And then finally, we will have your 2025 year-end September report available to you all in October of 2025. Next slide, please. So this is the end of the finance presentation. Hopefully this information was helpful to you all. At this moment, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have at this time.
Anyone have any questions? I mean, while you're thinking about that, you saw that Josh put something in the chat where you can find the last set of not the one that's coming up in March. But typically you'll find the section financial reports in the section's executive committee discussion group library. So that's only accessible to that group. It's not a public document. And when they are provided by Kevin and team, Josh will send something in Connect and or an email to the section leaders saying that they're available and posted there. But if you want to look at past years, there is some information there.
Great. Well, thank you all.
Thanks, Kevin.
And it looks like we have a question from Tyrone.
I have a question for you, Kevin. When was the last time the subventions from AGU to the sections were increased? That was $50 and $5,000 numbers.
I'm gonna have Josh and Rosa answer that question. I don't recall when was the last increase since.
It's not a yearly increase then.
No, it's been, I think that number, it predates a lot of us, including
Yeah.
John. I mean, I've been here almost 4 years, so I think it's been a number of years. And I will say that the question has come up, should we look at that? So
Not should we? Our expenses are subject to inflationary pressures, but our income isn't. So who makes that decision?
that would probably come through some conversation at committee levels, council board levels. So we can start that conversation at a staff level for sure.
Mhm.
Any other questions? And I should mention when you do get that info, and we you know, and I should mention, I think you all know that Josh, I mean, it's literally in his title, he's a section support coordinator. So if you have questions when those financials come out, certainly let him know. If there are questions where he needs to get finance, meaning Kevin and team involved, he will. But that's kind of the place to start with questions once you get something in front of you. All right. I guess we could move on to development. Kara.
Thank you. Josh, you can go to the next slide. Hi, everybody. My name is Kara Green. I am the Director of Development here at AGU, part of our fundraising team. And I did want to note that we do have our team members' contact information listed there on the left-hand side. Please feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions. However, Tracy Lamondu, our Vice President, and myself will be your main points of contact for any questions, concerns, thoughts on processes, and feedback going forward. So wanted to do a quick review of how we partner with AGU sections and fundraising. So the first thing I wanted to discuss was your section funds, and these are contributions to funds that show up on your quarterly budget reports that Kevin just reviewed. So each section has a specific fund, and happy to chat about that offline if you have specific questions regarding your fund, or as I said, you could reach out to finance as well for updates on the financial report. Some sections also have specific sub-funds, we internally call them. For example, Biogeosciences has a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, and that rolls up into their overall funding as well. So switching gears on how you could actually solicit for your funds, there's a couple different ways that sections have gone about it, and we're also open to ideas too. If you send out a quarterly or monthly newsletter, we can suggest language that you could put into there that has been used in the past. You could also do other communications, for example, if you have social media or if you want to post things on AGU Connect. And we can also do section-specific giving links. So for that, meaning that you could have a specific link that only lists the section fund that you would like to have listed to solicit gifts. And we can also do specific giving sites as well for that. And also another option is doing special initiatives, and I'm going to use the education section as an example. They do an Honor an Educator campaign each year where they solicit their members to honor an educator in their section, and also solicit gifts for that. And lastly, to talk about different ways that we could partner, our section support sponsorships. So this is soliciting corporations for support for your section programming that will go directly into your section fund. Sections can do this up to $5,000 for solicitations. And typically what we see is sections using that funding for student and early career grants and travel grants. And again, happy to chat more either through a Zoom meeting, phone call, or even an email if you have specific questions on the processes of that. And I know in the future, you'll also be receiving our 2025 section sponsorship levels, as well as the benefits that go with that too. And lastly, Josh is dropping in the chat right now 2 very important policies to keep in mind. And just for awareness regarding development is the AGU gift acceptance policy, which essentially overviews the type of gifts and processes that AGU receives gifts. AGU is a 501c3 nonprofit. So for awareness, we do have that, as well as the organizational support policy, which really outlines the corporations that AGU will work with. So with that quick overview, I'll stop and see if there are any questions. And again, if not, if something pops up later in your section meetings, please feel free to reach out to Tracy or I via email.
Thanks, Kara. Any questions?
Quick question. So basically sections can only receive support up to 5,000. Is that correct?
From corporations. So the process of sections reaching out to the corporations is up to 5,000 for the levels. If you'd like to have a larger conversation about working with corporations, we ask that you reach out to development first.
And the other one is, you mentioned that there could be links, whether those are in social media or the newsletter. Is there any plans to have like a direct link from each one of the permanent websites of the sections at the AGU main portal?
So the main giving page has every AGU fund listed on it so people can have access to the funds that they want to give to. However, for your specific section outreach, for example, your newsletters or your section specific Connect site, we can and most do have a link that only links to your section fund page. So you could work with development on that, and we can make you a specific giving link that only links to your fund.
Mm. Anything else, anyone? All right. We know this is a lot of information, but we will send it to you later. And what I would mention too is to make sure you share the information to however your section's organized. If you have someone who on your section who you've designated to volunteer and work on development or work on websites or whatever it is, feel free to share out the information based on the person who you've identified to work with on maybe certain parts of the section work. So, all right, so tools and resources, Josh?
Hello, everyone. I am Josh McKee. I'm the section support coordinator. I'm going to review tools and resources that we provide for sections. So this first slide is a document that the governance team has created that explains the meetings that AGU hosts that you all will be invited to. You'll see this again next week at the council meeting, so I don't want to get too much into details with this, but I wanted to make sure you were all aware. And then this slide is the dates and times for our monthly section leader support calls. We will be sending out agendas approximately 2 weeks ahead of the calls. And following our last orientation call at the end of this week, I will send out the calendar invites to all of you. So it will be quite a few calendar invites, so I apologize ahead of time for the bombardment to your inboxes. But once we send out the agendas, you're more than welcome to share this with anyone else on your section that you feel would benefit from being on the call. So sometimes we'll discuss student and early career activities. So if you wanted to include some of those members, you're more than welcome to. And then just so we're aware, the section leaders are the ones who are mainly invited to these. So that's the president-elect, and secretary and past secretaries. But anyone who would like can attend these meetings. They are recorded and the PowerPoints are provided to you following the call.
And if I could jump in for a minute, the purpose of these calls are, again, kind of what we're doing here, kind of the operational nature of the work you're doing. You'll hear me at each of these calls, which I moderate, asking you all for topics. So I do want to kind of put a bug in your ear. If there are topics you want to see on these monthly calls, please let me know. Most of the agendas are built based on what we hear from you. And in each of these are an hour-long meetings, and each of them also makes time for sections to give presentations in case you want to share across other sections on the call in terms of how you do things. Maybe it's the education section talking about their fund, or maybe it's the hydrology talking about how they set up a section event at the annual meeting. Or it could be something along the lines of recruiting for members or volunteerism, where we want sections who feel like they have something to share or do this well to share, but for you all to kind of learn from each other. So we're trying to make this as interactive, these calls, as possible. If you could go back one slide, Josh. And you'll see this next week. This is Cheryl's document, but I do get a lot of feedback that it's confusing what all the meetings are, and you'll probably hear Cheryl say this next week. But there's the council meeting that you all are aware of as council members that include the section leaders, but also others such as committee chairs and student and early career folks. The monthly leadership call is separate from these calls. So there's kind of three main meetings. Monthly leadership call, which you all may have gone to the first one, I think that already happened in the past month or weeks. That is something that's run by our executive office and talks about a major issue, kind of one issue per meeting, and really does a deep dive. It may be around advocacy, or it may be around the annual meeting. And then the section support calls, as we mentioned here. And those are the monthly calls where we want to get your input on how we can help support you learning from each other and us supporting you. So why don't we keep going, Josh?
And I'm dropping in the chat the email for the section help. You can send any topics you'd like us to review to this. And also, if you have any questions about anything else, this is the email you would use. Even if you're trying to contact other departments, but you're not sure, feel free to use this email and I'll direct you to the best point of contact. Okay, so this is the slide that the calendar that Rosa mentioned earlier for Tyrone's question about an overview of all of the asks that are coming at you. So this is a very high scale or high level quarterly breakdown of each thing. So we have categories for AGU 25, which lists the major deliverables that we'll need from you. And then we also have the document or the row for honors. When you support your UMAP sections and fellows nominations, honors review. And then under the section leader calls, I've listed the dates and times again of all of our calls. And then under council, right now we have 2 dates for the council meetings. This will be updated when they have identified the dates for Q2 and Q3. And then under ongoing, these are things that don't have a specific due date, but things you should be looking at throughout the year. So there's things like newsletters, reviewing your section websites, filling out your committee rosters, which I'll get into in a bit, sponsorships. And this will be provided to you following the call. Okay, and then here's a list of some resources that help you with outreach to your sections. I will provide tutorials on these resources that will provide you with further detail, but I did want to hit on some of these during our call. We do have AGU Connect. This is our open networking collaboration platform. Each section has their own community in Connect, excuse me. And then we're also we're able to provide you with surveys. We use Microsoft Forms to create these surveys. If you are interested in creating one, please have your questions and response options prepared when you reach out to me. And then newsletters. Most sections distribute their newsletters through AGU. They go out every Monday. And please note that drafts are due to me by Wednesday at 4 p.m. each week. And then the final drafts, which our communications team will build, will need to be approved by you by 4 p.m. on that Friday. And then they'll be distributed the following Monday. Sometimes these deadlines do change due to holidays and summer hours, and I will be posting those in AGU Connect in the section leaders group, so you have access to all of those dates. And then we also have the section websites. So the section leaders and your web editors are free to customize your websites as you see fit. Content is mostly discretionary, but AGU may partner with sections to ensure accuracy and consistency of information. Be sure to list your web editors on your committee rosters so that I know to make sure they have access to your sites. And then in the chat, I'm going to include a link that lists all of the section's websites. I want to make sure you have access to that. And then the last resource here are webinars. You have two platforms that we use, GoToWebinars or Zoom. Zoom is the one that we use most. GoToWebinars, I think there's only 1 or 2 sections that request that a year. There are different reasons that a section may request one over the other, but I'll include that in the tutorial for you. And then we have some section support updates. So section committee rosters are the documents where you record members selected for your committee positions and their term dates. These are maintained by section leaders. However, AGU uses these rosters to update our records. And you all should have received information from me about this earlier, but your completed rosters are due to me on October 14th. So let me know if you need me to resend the links to the rosters, and I can send those right out to you. And then also, I mentioned briefly that I'll be putting together some how-to resources. I've listed the topics that I've already chosen to create tutorials for. So for navigating and updating Section Connect sites, creating newsletters, hosting webinars, surveys, and checking section financials. So please let me know if there are any other topics that you would like for me to create tutorials on, and I can start working on those. And then again, if you have any questions or need assistance with anything section related, feel free to reach out to the section support team. That's myself and Rosa at the email I provided in the chat. That's agu-sectionhelp@agu.org. And then any questions on the tools and resources?
I hate to be the one asking questions all the time, but I'll ask one here. I have been the chair of our OSPA committee for the last 10 years. Previously, that committee doesn't properly constitute itself until we know who's going to AGU frequently. And it's always been a problem having to create a section committee roster for that particular committee in March when we don't know what's happening with that. What is the flexibility that we have in adjusting these after March?
Yeah, these are they're very easy for me to update. So you would just have to let me know what updates you've created. But for OSPA specifically, my colleague Ricky works on that team. I'd have to reach out to her to see what flexibilities she has. I'm not sure what deadline she has to start working with these committees. So I'd have to reach out to her to get a specific response for that one. But for the rosters in general, these can be updated throughout the year. You would just have to send me an email to let me know, and I can make sure our records are updated. Any other questions?
Are there tools and resources you expected to see or think that might be helpful that we may want to consider?
I have a question about the website
Sure.
is a continual difficulty in keeping that updated. Is there going to be any help and tutorials on how to, I don't know, improve using and updating the website? I know our webmaster has struggled over the years.
We do already have some training links, but I can look into those and see what other resources we can help to provide you. But following the call, Colleen, I can make sure that you have access to those links as well.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, and I know there's been problems over the years of, you know, if you can't, for instance, like last year, we were having a hard time putting in images into the website, and we were having a hard time getting anyone to help us figure out that issue. So I don't know, is there a specific contact that helps troubleshoot website
so
issues?
if you send me an email to the AGU section help email that's listed here on the screen,
Yeah.
I can create a ticket with our developer and Higher Logic, and we can make sure that someone from the Higher Logic team is notified right away and is able to help you get those issues squared away.
Okay.
I do have another question on social media. Is there anything on that? Do we have any knowledge of what's going on?
Interesting that you mentioned that. Just a few minutes before this meeting, I had some outreach from our communications team that there is some guidance and guidelines that I think are new, given, right? But just kind of heard about it a little late into the putting the agenda together. So my suggestion, we'll see if they do this, is that we have the communications team come on our first monthly call in March to do a presentation, ask questions, but let's see if we can get the guidance to you before that meeting. Anyone else? Okay, what do we have next here? Or was that the end, Josh? Yeah.
Open mic.
All right, so why don't we take down the slides, and we've got about 15 minutes left. But are there any thoughts, questions you want to kind of discuss here? Anything you might want to hear in our monthly calls that are coming up? Can help us build the agenda, since those are your meetings. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we will send this info out. Ian, were you gonna mention something? I saw you come off mute.
Nope, just getting ready to say thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Well, I'm glad you took a few minutes to kind of go through these. I know it's a lot of information, so as Josh says, some tutorials will be available that you can refer back to or send to other folks who may be more in the weeds of helping you with some of the tasks. I think some of the first things you'll be, aside from the committee rosters, that you'll be hearing from us on in the next month or so, believe it or not, in March, we'll probably be very thick in asking about planning for the annual meeting and section events. So that will be something, at least from my team, that will come up pretty soon. As you know, we're in the honors nomination period with at least the UMAP and hydrology section honors nomination deadline of this Friday. So if you know of someone who is thinking about submitting, they should. Fellows and sections are later date. But just so you know, we're very much in the midst of that. And we want to keep talking with you on a monthly basis and get any information to you that you think may be helpful. So with that, I'll let you go, and we'll talk more, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thank you.